everyone, and welcome to Zest with me, Shel Marie, the podcast that will take you on a journey from the hustle to the harmony, fueling your passion whilst finding your peace. Today, it's an absolute pleasure to welcome Clare Mann, a vegan psychologist, Vystopia transformational coach, and the author of Vystopia. She empowers vegans navigating an often non-vegan world, helping them transform isolation and ethical struggle into confident, impactful action. In today's conversation, she will share how we can speak our truth with more clarity, influence, and compassion, turn discomfort into courage, and create ripples of positive transformation and change in the world. So let's dive in and let's meet her. She's here and she's ready and she's looking very fabulous. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Oh, thank you so much. What a wonderful introduction. And you know, when we hear words like passion and empowerment and zen and zest, we feel better. And there is a different activity in the brain, you know, and different biochemistry that happens almost instantaneously, as opposed to when we hear words that are, you know, negative and concern and fear and all those sort of ones. So very, very important to be very careful what comes out of our mouths and what we think.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for highlighting that. And even I feel like whether we want to say intuitively or just a knowing, we naturally want to emphasize them more as well. And obviously the latter of words that aren't so empowering, a lot of people really emphasize them and they create a certain feeling. And I agree with you. Words are very, very, very powerful. And thinking about that, you have coined a very beautiful, empowering word, and I would love to know the journey of that, or the story behind it, or how that came into fruition.
Sure. Well, it is an empowering word, particularly for people that recognize and were struggling with a particular sense, what I call a psychological anguish, a burden of knowing about certain things happening behind closed doors. And when we become aware of it, 99.9% of the population would go, oh my gosh, that's terrible. But what is interesting is, whilst it's come from the need to respond to something that is so painful, it actually, as you say, it is empowering, because when you know what something is, you know what it isn't, as opposed to, although intuition, I'd love to come back to that one in a moment, is absolutely so important when we're speaking to individuals who might try to downplay that. The word is very powerful. So what does the word mean and where does it come from? People might notice that the word Vystopia sounds like dystopia or utopia. It's interesting how this theme is going today, isn't it, with a positive and a negative. A dystopia is it's an imagined, sometimes experienced darkness, greed, torture, fear, panic, incarceration. Listen to the effect those words have. Horrible sort of limitation, competition, those sort of things. Utopia is an imagined and often real place of joy and freedom and empowerment and zest and these sort of wonderful opportunities and potential. So Vystopia, or Vystopia really is the correct term, is it really is a vegan dystopia, a darkness related to veganism. Now, it's very important to identify what veganism is. It's not a fussy diet. And this gives me hope in a way, because the vegan becomes frustrated that people immediately think diet, but actually that's just a consequence of a philosophical position about loving kindness, actually. Ostensibly, it is about the non-use and non-exploitation of animals, of which one thing is you don't eat them. But really, it is a philosophy of loving kindness towards ourselves, towards all other people, even the ones that do bad or, you know, aren't so lovable in their actions. All living creatures, so not just our companion animals, ones we live with and share our sofas with, but the ones that actually have been hidden behind closed doors and we use them for our own good, testing labs or whatever. But it's also a loving kindness towards all ecosystems. And really that's veganism. Now, who doesn't want this sort of balance of kindness and care? You know, that's majority of people we want to. So really it's expanding that window of consciousness. So Vystopia is the term I gave because the medical profession were starting to send to me at the time. I was seeing people one-to-one several years ago, they would send people to, as a psychologist, they would send people to me as a general psychologist to start, saying they suffer from 3 different conditions. Now, I'd love to know your reaction to this, and the listeners. Take the top subject matter out in a way, but I think the overreach of the professional, the doctor, the psychiatrist, they sent people to me who had eating disorders. Now, vegans, like anyone else, can have eating disorders, but it's not because they don't eat animals, okay? So it's interpreting it as if they've got a problem about body size, as opposed to saying, well, I don't use animals to be hurt. The second one is that people had social adjustment disorders because they didn't want to sit down to Thanksgiving and eat a turkey because they've just talked to a turkey in a sanctuary, or they didn't want to eat Easter eggs, have cakes with eggs in them, for instance, because they know what happens to chickens and chicks and those things. It's not byproducts, etc. But they were told, and I was told, this person has a social adjustment disorder. They need to stop, get with the program, go along with everyone else. But the third one, and this really concerned me, they sent me people that they said had such low self-esteem that they were self-harming themselves by watching animal cruelty videos.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that, so you get say a young person, I once had a 15-year-old come to see me, she had just become aware of horrific things happening, where her shampoo came from, what was happening in a testing lab. We all cringe when we think of what happens to millions and millions of rabbits and mice, guinea pigs. It's still going on. She goes to her doctor and they say, oh, you've got low self-esteem, you're trying to torture yourself, as opposed to, do you know what's going on? Don't you think we should do something? And I was so, doing interesting that Zen to Zest, that fire came up within me and it ignited something that said, I've got to do something. And it's happened several times in my life. And so what I decided was I had to use the power I had as a psychologist with access to those people to tell them exactly what it was and what it wasn't. So that's how it came about. And I thought, well, Vystopia would be a wonderful word because we've got this juxtaposition between the awfulness and yet the solution at the same time.
Beautiful.
And so from darkness to light almost. So, but you have to define it, the actual term.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Claire. And one really big thing that I can hear from you sharing that is awareness. Often it's not necessarily the professional that said that this is what you have. It's not the person that felt that way. All are just playing out a lack of awareness in each area. Like, that professional was probably only given advice at the capacity and the knowledge they knew. Then that person was getting whether they were, like, I know there's different circumstances, but that person again was only receiving the information at the level of that person. So like it's actually very scary to think that if there wasn't another step, potentially, the next path to you, or someone that could think a little bit wider, think a little bit deeper, use your expertise, it makes you think like how many people would have gone down a very different route and would have had very different thoughts, feelings and emotions and confusion around how they're feeling, but still like, no, but I don't think it's that, but then that's that person that told me that. So it's really quite like when we just zoom out further than the actual just veganism, actually at just general people and having misdiagnosis and feeling very confused and so wow.
Well, this is really important what you're saying, because as you're saying it, I'm thinking about I'm thinking of an animal analogy, and we'll use it in a moment, but it could be a child growing up in a family who is told when they're upset at something to say, a boy, man up, stop crying, don't be ridiculous. And that confusion of that feeling. So when that feeling comes again, they're straight back being told off in the supermarket to man up and stop crying, when in fact they are having a normal, necessary, desirable response to something that's upsetting. They don't have to solve their feelings, they have to experience them and make sense of them and act accordingly. But a wonderful example I would use, terribly sad, is I've come across a lot of people that as children went out hunting with dad to hunt animals, innocent animals, and kill them in the forest or whatever. And the little boy, when that happens, or little girl, is so horrified and upset.
Yeah.
And in that moment, in fact, my dear friend and colleague, Belle Jacobs, in the UK, has set up something called the UK Empathy Project. And she interviewed someone who's now an animal rights campaigner. But when he was a child, he went hunting with a family, and an animal was killed by his own hand, with the gun. And a man came up to him and patted him on the back. "You are so lucky, a kill on your first way out." But he said in that moment, he was so distressed. If someone had come to him and said, "Oh my gosh, isn't that awful?" He said his life would have gone on a completely different trajectory. This way, he went down that path, and it took him several years to go, actually, no, I wasn't wrong. This is abysmal. This is terrible, just for entertainment. So that's a wonderful example. I think that's interesting.
Yeah, and I think even that so powerfully shows the innocence of often a child, or not even a child. Sometimes we go into these circumstances and we don't really know the impact or what we are participating in until, unfortunately, sometimes what we see at the end. And I remember, obviously, I remember it being a joyful experience, but then afterwards, and I don't remember saying it to the people at the time because I didn't want to upset them, but I remember not knowing what the word beating meant, and I remember I wasn't even that young, and I remember it was the whole, experience, and we're all in the Jeep, and we're going across the thing, and I was having so much fun, and then, they're making all the sounds, and so they were like, "Wow, you're so good at it, Shelley," because I'm really enjoying this experience, not really fully, and you could call me naive or whatever, missed some information, but and then obviously when I then saw the pile and what the actual outcome was, it really upset me. But because then I loved these people so much, and it was their livelihood and things like that, I felt like I couldn't really say anything, but I remember feeling very traumatized by it, especially that I was so good at it. And
so this was a hunt. This was a hunt you were involved in, or
so as we were talking about, in like Wiltshire, in the countryside, there's this thing where farmers and it's pheasants basically, and you make a noise and then they fly up, and then I didn't know until I heard. I was like, "What's that?" And then they shoot them. But again, it was kind of like I'd been so much in the adrenaline and the enjoyment of it, and then I was like, "What?" But it was kind of like everything just slowed down, and I just thought, "Oh my gosh, I've just like contributed towards that." But again, everyone around me, because, and it's not justifying, but that was their livelihood. That's, how they, and I just remember that being like, oh wow, and I really had to sit with it or block it out, and like, just you sharing that now, it came up. And even little things of like seeing people hold animals up by their ears. I remember as a child just feeling very upset by things like that, and getting told, "Oh, don't be so sensitive," and all this. But I don't know, even sometimes I remember there was an advertisement, and it was just literally a rhyme of British pork on your fork, and it really traumatized me. It really upset me. But we don't think sometimes, do we? Or do we? That's the thing, we don't know.
Well,
but
I think what you're saying is so important, because it also is the reason why most people don't change about a lot of things, about so many things. Is, well, I don't want to rock the boat. I don't want to spoil the fun. And yet when often we say something, other people go, "Well, actually, I feel the same too." But it is this, our social cohesion. We want to belong. We want to be accepted. You're having a nice time. It's great. It's out in the country. It's wonderful. And the whole experience is there. So this is what happens, I guess, with veganism, because the question comes is, well, how will I just have the normal traditions and habits? We always go for a barbecue on a Sunday. Oh, come on, we always have hot pot on a Thursday or whatever. I'm just using an English analogy. Well, you can have all of that. You just change the ingredients. But it's actually, people, are not eating animals because they don't like them. It's because it's our habits, our traditions, our belongings. And I think you're using a wonderful example of really social. It's social control to a large extent. However, you see, when people don't speak out about a lot of things, how do we bring about change? How have we seen these social justice movements in all sorts of areas unless somebody stood up and said, well, actually, no. But really not on your own, because I was vegetarian for 30 years. And we can talk about, if you like, why I became vegan and created this word, how it's actually fitted in. But I can remember coming from England, of course, going to Germany. It was a job I was doing with a university there. And I bought a coat, a suede coat with a fur collar. Now, I had become a vegetarian because I was horrified about what happened to cows in slaughterhouses. I just read about it. And I still to this day say to myself, what was I thinking of? Did I think somebody found it as a byproduct in the street, the normal death of an animal in the forest? I actually didn't think. And I think that certainly gives me, and I hope it should give you, compassion for yourself to go, and other people to go, our psychic defenses are so strong, we don't see that until somebody invites it. But often when it's invited, it causes a discomfort. So the messenger is shot. So we have to engage in what I call trance-breaking language to get people to go, what? Because then we're inviting people to raise their own consciousness, to make choices about where, their t-shirts come from that might be having 5-year-old children fall into the machinery. Unless we tell people, they may not like, if we said you shouldn't buy your t-shirt from there because children are suffering, they're going to feel bad. Whereas if you say, hey, I can't believe what I found out here. I did some research, and whilst these t-shirts are cheap, which is great, the consequence, and I'm not sure I want to do that. I'm happy to pay a few bucks more to get something that I can sleep at night. But it's how we communicate with people, because most people, when they resist this and say, I don't care, it's because they want us to go away, really, because we're, inviting people to do that. But I bet there were a few other people in that pheasant shooting that, thought, oh, this isn't right. But then it gets embedded down. And of course, that's how people get to do things and sell cigarettes in the third world, because everyone goes, oh, God, this isn't right. But, but we'll test it on children in some third world country, or we'll get them. But when people speak out, and the courage, my experience is people come up and they go, do I wanted to do that, but I didn't have the nerve. And I think when we do that, when we take the courage, we become an example to others to really live our values and invite people to be better than we all are. We can be, all of us.
Yeah. I think also something really powerful that you mentioned, it's just ironic again that something came up very recent for me in Amsterdam, and yeah, it's very obviously you've started this because of your, not just your passion, but something you truly believe in, and I know that when we are passionate, a lot of the time our emotions can easily get swept into that. And even in you saying, oh, I read this article, it's a very different way to the other way that you said. So for example, and again, I know sometimes we do need that shock tactic, but I think also the people, when people are really advocating and they're really standing up for things, sometimes they can have the passion in that, but sometimes they need training as well, a little bit, because in Amsterdam recently, I was just intrigued. They've got protestings going on, and there was a lot of really, really, difficult issues. And I remember just seeing people holding a TV on their head, so it didn't look anything like to do with veganism and animals. And I remember just being curious, and I just remember this guy just really so you're a murderer, and really, really coming at me, and sometimes people need time to process, like what you say, to say the facts, to really drop the seeds, plant the seeds, and let people know, this, did you know this is happening in the world? And although I know he was coming from a place of love, and it was something he was really passionate about, and he really wants this, to stop, and you could see it really hurt him, and he wanted to get it across straight away. But like what you say, people shut down, especially using certain words. We just talked about the power of words. Saying to someone straight away a word like that is going to really it's not
Yes.
saying, like, trust me, I had time and I had thought and I really, really thought about it. But in that moment, he's not going to get anything from anyone, because
Sure.
it's just the
Yeah.
whole approach was just so like,
Yeah.
yeah, really, really, really,
Mm.
really harsh. But again, no one's right, no one's wrong. That was just his passionate approach. But I
Yeah.
was just like, I actually was
Mm.
thinking, like, just thinking about this now, and I was just thinking, it's such a shame, really, because what he was talking about was super important. But I know a lot of people will just straight away shut down and not
Sure.
listen because of the way it was delivered.
Yes. Mm. You know, you're so right, and that, you know, if there was one way to get people to be kinder to animals, to people, to our earth on which we were, everybody would be doing it, or a vast majority of people.
Yeah.
So, you know, how does change happen? Now, I came to this through seeing graphic footage, but it wasn't in a way where I'm the murderer, I'm the problem. It's as
Yeah.
you said, if you know this is going,
Mm.
have you become
Mm-hmm.
aware of how much we're lied to? Because that's what we're talking about here. But the problem in that moment is him saying that he's the messenger that gets shot, isn't he? As opposed to the
Yeah.
industry, the
Yeah.
government, the person sitting around the board table, you know, really making animals suffer to increase profits.
Yeah.
We're the problem. This is the sort of, so I think it's the language absolutely to be used, but inviting people to literally come alongside people and also see the good in people. The vast majority of people, and I've been a psychologist 35 years, and
Mm.
I've worked in homicide, I've worked in the Middle East and all sorts of places, and people that could have been blown up and killed. Basically, the average person is pretty good.
Yeah.
Circumstances make them otherwise. And often people don't see within their own circumstances what they can do to change things. In fact, I was watching a podcast the other day, and it was an interview of a woman in Cuba. And she was talking about when the embargo happened, and literally overnight, nothing came into the country. She
Wow.
said, you know, really big people became really small people. People were going to starve to death.
Mm.
People, they had nothing coming in. And so if they hadn't, you know, there was food reduction, massive food reductions. Children were taking a little ounce of brown sugar that was left in the pantry for their morning snack to just keep them
Wow.
awake. And she was just talking, she said, but what came out of that was collaboration. People came
Mm.
together and they made music, and they took out their old sewing and
Wow.
recombined their clothes and made new things. They made musical instruments out of things, and they looked forward to that. And she was saying that, you know, it was rather sad because she had become really big again and looked very unhealthy, actually. But of course, you know, she'd probably been starved, poor woman.
Yeah.
But she was just talking that, you know, we have a choice when push comes to shove. You
Mm.
know, do we help another person up, or do we grab things for ourselves? But you know, if I could give you a definition of Vystopia, it might actually highlight also the stage that guy was stuck at. Is that okay?
Absolutely. Yeah. Please. Yeah.
Yeah, because it would make sense then. So Vystopia is a psychological and it's emotional anguish that a person feels when they become aware of the institutionalized, normalized,
Mm.
legalized, acceptable, hidden behind closed doors, and cruelty towards animals.
Yeah.
Okay? The problem is so big, it's over 1 trillion animals a year are used by humans. If we accept every crustacea, which is the biggest group that is killed, and each fish person, I'm going to say that because they are individuals, our nervous systems are just like us. You know, it's really extraordinary. That's the first stage, to feel the different anguish of, oh my gosh, how on earth has this gone on and I didn't know it?
Mm.
Billions and billions of, there's only 8 billion of us, and yet there's multi-billions of these animals used, and it's not just for food. Anyway, we'll come back to that. The anguish someone feels at the institutionalized, normalized, legalized cruelty towards animals. But then when they tell people and say, oh my God, look what I've discovered,
Yeah.
instead of a person going, oh my gosh, I must have a look, they go, oh, don't be so ridiculous. The government would never allow it. That's only a few bad apples. This doesn't happen. I only get my meat from organic farms where they sing to the cows. And it goes on and on. So the person feels a secondary anguish of this stuff.
Yeah.
But then as they learn to navigate the trauma, which many people get stuck at, and I imagine that young man is there, he also then needs to learn to communicate, to engage people in how much we've all been duped. But the third stage is, well, just a minute, if I didn't know when I looked down at my dinner plate that there is a living being that begged for their lives before they were taken, for nothing more inconsequential than a meal that half of it I'll throw in the bin because I'm too full. What else don't I know? But then we're called a conspiracy theorist. And haven't we heard that term these days? So, but that's the definition of Vystopia. It's 3 different stages. So that young man, to some extent, you've got the consciousness to go, he's in pain, he's suffering.
Yeah, that's the thing. I didn't see it as a direct attack at me. I really saw it as, you know, it's something he's really like, it's really hurting him right now. But I just felt like he didn't necessarily have the language to really communicate in the best way, and that's the thing. I could see deeper than it of it, he will, and I'm sure, you know, unfortunately, he probably have so many certain things, and he will find a new strategy or approach or something, and he's allowed to express how he wants to express. But I just thought it's such a shame, because what he's actually advocating for, what he's standing up for, is something really important that we do need to have more knowledge on and awareness. But like kind of as we say, like feeling straight away, like even with the food on the plate, like people, whether they're aware of it or not, straight away want to defend, because there's something that we know potentially is going on that we don't know quite about. And that's why, because why would we become like that straight away? That's the thing we have to question. I think that's it. But that thing about the young man, in that moment, it's unfortunate, but I wonder if he's playing a role. Because anyone listening to this who is a pre-vegan, and I always call us pre-vegans, because people do care about animals. They care about their children. They care about the companion animals they live with. They care about the wildlife. People are not non-vegan, they're pre-vegan. Our job really, I think, as human beings, is to expand the window of consciousness to encompass all living beings. And in that case, with that young man, the vegans perhaps could do with expanding their window of consciousness to other people and see the good in the person. But there is the good thing about this. Anyone listening to this could go, oh, well, I didn't read that. I saw that young man in Amsterdam holding that. Cool, if that's a vegan, I don't like it. And then they hear us talking and go, well, just a minute, they're talking about loving kindness and understanding other people. And actually, I am a good person. Of course I'm a good person. I look after my family. I do a job I don't even like to look after my family. You know, that needs to be acknowledged and rewarded. And so maybe him being so extreme, in one sense, gives the opportunity for another person to listen to another message that goes, well, actually, that's just his pain. But actually, all of us can want to be better versions of ourselves. So, well, maybe I will look at that. So it's maybe all part of the cosmic sort of absolutely
thing.
Because I even expressing that and having that first initial feeling of who was the one that then went and sat and really contemplated on what he had just said to me, whereas you know, like that's what I was saying, even from his perspective, from my perspective, and so yeah, you're absolutely right. Like everything still has an underlining message, whether we can receive it straight away or at a later time. We're still having this conversation, so he had some impact, you know.
He did, but you went away and thought about it. That's right. So, and I hear so many people like that. Dear colleague, Dr. Faraz Harsini, was vegetarian. It wasn't vegetarian for you. He used to do a lot of things in animal protection. He's a bioscientist, does some wonderful work now, bringing education into education. Pretty high level academic. Does a lot of animal protection. But he said, you know, he was out there talking about, you know, saving certain animals, and he was on on platforms and conferences. And then somebody said to him, well, you're a bit of a hypocrite, really, because you say you want to help these wildlife or whatever, or animal in testing, that's right, animal in testing labs, but you eat animals. He said, I was so furious at her, I was so angry. She couldn't see the good. He said, I went away and I was resentful for 3 months. And then I woke up and went, she's actually right. The reason I'm unhappy is not what she said, is because I am a hypocrite. And so we never know. I love the thing you say about sowing seeds. All of us, this little dropping of seeds. We're not, once we get into very difficult ground when we try to influence people's consciousness. How dare they? We don't like it when people come to us and say, oh, your eyes are a bit closed. You know, nobody has a monopoly on this thing called life. You know, our parents try to do it. You know, when you grow up, you'll become wise. Well, I see a lot of people that perhaps stuck at 20 and have just lived the same life. So they can be not as wise as a 5-year-old who says something and you go, oh my goodness.
Absolutely. Yeah, I can vouch for that from being, you know, being in education, particularly those little ones. And I tell you,
Yeah,
some of those even 3-year-olds, it's like, wow, where did that come from?
yes, exactly.
It's incredible.
Yeah. Can I share a story with you?
Yes, please.
Is people come to grow and learn in different ways, but let's say to veganism. Now we got a new definition here. It's a philosophy of loving kindness. You know, it's of which one of the consequences is we don't eat or kill animals. So because you have to kill them, and they're not giving up their lives voluntarily. And this was a girl in the deep south. She was talking to me as a, say, a 20-year-old. And when she was 12 years old, she was in the deep south of America, in Ohio or something, big meat eating sort of area. Her local town, I think, had their own abattoir, you know. Anyway, she was brought up in that, no outside world, hadn't heard of a vegetarian, certainly hadn't heard of a vegan. And she was watching The Simpsons. And she's in The Simpsons, I don't know the players in it, but this guy comes back and he's killed a reindeer for Christmas, plonks the reindeer on the table and says, that's for your daughter and you for dinner. And she said, how dare you? You know my daughter's a vegetarian. This 12-year-old went outside. She said, I sat in the garden. I looked up at the stars. She said, I was there for a long time.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, I don't eat reindeer, so why do I have to eat other animals? And this girl even made the leap to realize that milk and eggs were not byproducts, which is what I believed for 30 years. They actually cause someone to die, okay, and suffering to happen, okay? And we can explain that if people want to know that. But she even gave that up. She was 12 years old. She had no one to talk to. She certainly didn't have a label for what was going on. So isn't that interesting? So, you know, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And that can be at 12 years old. It can be at 55, on all sorts of things.
Well, ironically, and you're on this podcast now.
You know, our lives have crossed. And I come from England too. And I was brought up with meat and 2 veg. And
yeah.
That's right.
I used to even hear in my head now, my nan, Fish Friday.
Oh, Fish Friday, that's right, exactly. Oh my gosh, Shrove Tuesday. You know, but this is the thing. It becomes an association of culture and belonging.
Yes.
We're laughing at it because we have something in common. We have an Englishness about us, and that's really what we don't want to give up. And the lovely thing is, we don't have to. We don't have to. We can have all the associations, belongings, traditions. And the great news is, you change the ingredients of it. And the lovely thing is no one has to suffer.
Yeah.
How good does it get?
Yeah. I don't want to brush past what you just mentioned, because I feel like there's a reason why you mentioned it about the eggs and the milk.
Yes.
So I think, I don't know, I just feel like you've said that, and that I've really heard that for a reason, because again, yes. I think if I'm questioning it, then other people will be.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I became vegetarian when I was about 17, nearly 18. And I came from the south of England. I just moved to London. And I just read about an account of what happened it was in a book. I don't think the book had been published. Maybe it had. It was by Bob Geldof for the Boomtown Rats. Yes. And he wrote a book called Is That It? And he worked in an abattoir in Dublin. And I didn't see anything, hear anything, but as the words I'm reading, he described what happened to a cow going to slaughter. And that is, you know, the fear, the panic. They lost every orifice of their body, ejected something in their fear. You know, this is not healthy food. And literally, and I thought, oh my gosh, how can that happen? That was 1979-ish. I immediately stopped eating meat. I'm not going to be part of that, gosh, you know. And I carried on my life, okay? Happily vegetarian, okay? Thinking I'm doing the right thing. I'm not contributing to something so heinous, okay? Luckily, I had a eczema. So I stopped eating dairy. I say luckily because when I discovered later on, but I'm eating eggs and, you know, fish and all this sort of thing, and I'm carrying on. And then it was about 18 years ago, and I became aware of, through circuitous means, of the first thing was living in New Zealand. And I woke up one morning and there was this terrible crying. And there was of cows mooing. And they cried and they cried and they cried. And it went on for 30 hours. And then suddenly it all stopped. I couldn't find out what it was. We were living in, my partner and I, in the country. It was like, what on earth is this? What is going on? I later discovered that they had taken their babies away. They just had their babies, they'd taken them away. Well, why are they doing that, was the question. Well, we need the milk. We like the milk in our lattes. Well, what are you going to do with the babies? Well, we're going to put them over there. Some of them go for veal, which means they don't even let them lie down. They just hoist them up so they don't move, so the meat is all tender. Or they put them in little crates on their own, away from mother, on soy milk. From some third world country they've grown, send it over here. So those people over there have nothing to eat. We're feeding a bovine on soy milk so we can eat the reproductive secretion of another animal in our latte. This is madness. You know, this is what I thought. But I didn't know. I just thought, oh, this is New Zealand. Also came across the horrible hunting of animals again, pig dogging, and it's called over there. But when we came back to New Zealand, Australia, my husband now said to me, you know, I just don't think this is New Zealand. I'm going to have a look. So he went and researched about these sort of things, came across the egg industry and the dairy industry and whatever, and the meat industry. He said, Claire, we've got to sit down. We're both vegetarian at this stage. We sat down and we watched things like Earthlings, which shows all matter of animal cruelty, not institutionalized, where our food comes from, where our makeup comes from, where clothes, military exercise, everything. The next one was Dairy is Scary. Now that's only about 7 minutes, 11 minutes long. And also Meet Your Meat, things like this. Now I'm vegetarian, I don't want to be part of that. That's one thing, and that's often what people think. But what about eggs and dairy? Well, where does our dairy come from? I couldn't believe, as a couple of years, oh my God, 30, 47, nearly 50 years old at the time. And I say to myself, I didn't know that I didn't voice, of course I knew, a mother has to be pregnant to produce milk. We're women. There you go. Well, you don't know, and you're not stupid by any means.
But now when you think about it as a mother,
yes.
Oh my gosh, so that's a lot of pregnant cows.
Exactly. So if you think about it, but you know, they're just like us. They have a 9-month pregnancy, and they lactate like us. So it takes that long. When the baby's born, they produce milk. Because where do we think all this milk comes from in all these cafes and all these products? It was like a lightning bolt, Shel. It was like, oh my God. So what happens is they take the babies away they make the mother pregnant, they take the baby. Then that baby goes into the slavery system to do it all again. Also, the others, instead of being
the milk either. No.
That's right. So they're seriously compromised. We're drinking this milk. Great, because when we see a great big litre of a milk that somebody brings out from a cafe, you imagine if whether you're women or your mothers or whatever, we know when a mother's feeding her baby, that would be a frig load of milk. So what they do, they overproduce. So instead of her udders being like that, they are almost let right down the pain and agony of what we're doing. And I'm not here to traumatize people, but this is how much we've been lied to.
No, but it's truth. It's awareness. That's
yes.
You know, everyone has the option to keep listening or to turn off. Like, we all have our own, but at the end of the day, it goes back to what you say. Sorry to interrupt you, Claire, but
please.
You know, with everything, there's so many situations, even things we come across, other things of, you know, would you like to know? Or no, people don't want to know because it's easier not to know. Whereas, you know, when we say it, we say it. We speak our truth, and I so appreciate you doing that. That's why you're the guest today. You're not here to.
Yes. Thank you. I appreciate. So it's like, you know, and then of course because people are decent and they go, oh my God, that's awful. I only get my milk from ABC. Now it is not possible. But you don't say to the mother, could you produce a bit more and not give it to baby? Okay. So what happens is they overproduce this. So the udders of the cow are incredibly infected and sore. Imagine breastfeeding to 15 times, 20, 30 more times than you normally would. People talk about the pain that they feel. So they get mastitis, which is infected things. So what they do, they actually, and I say, I'm not here to traumatize, but to really wake us up. We shouldn't be doing this. They actually use a blowtorch to burn off the hairs. So you imagine breasts that you're breastfeeding. So as I say, we're not here to, but this is how much we've been lied to. So I couldn't believe it. So firstly, there was that. And oh my God, but you feel a little bit silly because you go, But also we've got grown human beings eating the reproductive secretion of another mammal. And here's the other news. We've been lied. I was brought up in school in the south of England with little things of milk. We need it for calcium. Animal-based calcium is not good for humans. Calcium, it has calcium. There's a 40% increased risk of breast cancer when women have dairy milk. And we have been so lied to. There's the third bit. What else don't I know? And so we can live healthy and happy lives, but we've become addicted to it, Shel. And why do people go, yeah, but I'm so used to it. I can't give up cheese. And do you know there's a reason for that? And I had no idea. The mother cow produces something called casomorphines. Caso is the milk. Morphines is a drug-like thing. Why does she produce it? So that her baby stays close to her. As humans, we have become addicted to casomorphines. That's why we keep going, oh, I love cheese. I mean, how pathological is this, that we have been lied to so much that not only are somebody's babies being lost, she's in agony trying to produce it, but we have become addicted to a hormone meant to keep a baby safe, and we're grown-ups, and it gives us all these health issues. And you go, just a moment. So that became an awareness, but I didn't know for 30 years.
Wow.
And then I will raise it because it is the egg industry. What could possibly wrong with eggs? That's what I thought with chickens. Chickens are just like us. They used to produce, when we left them alone, before we genetically modified them, crossbred them from about it's gone on for 10,000 years. But to the extent we're talking now, it's probably the 1950s was a massive increase in this in Western society. They are just like us. They produce 1 egg a month, sometimes 2 for twins. Okay? Yes, exactly. So how do you get an animal in a factory farm, which is the size of an A4 bit of paper with like 10 birds in there? They can't even move. Yeah. How do you get them to produce an egg each day? Okay? And what happens, because they're like giving birth every day of their tiny little lives. You've got babies having babies, so they're mass producing them. They're putting growth hormones into them. Every egg they lay they lose 10% of the calcium of their body. So what do? Oh, we better give them calcium-rich food, and then they have kidney failure. So they die, and then we get the next batch in. I mean, they used to be in the jungles in Asia. You know, they're beautiful. And when we see healthy chickens on what we see as a farm, we go, oh, they're nearer to what they were. But let's take it in another sense, is under that model, if you think about it, if you've got a production system that produces one hen, and you've got millions of these birds in environments that are heinous, they don't even see the light of day. Well, I've been to these places. You have to wear a mask because the feather dust is and the smell of ammonia. Dear animals living in this, they should live in the jungle. But anyway, if you think about it, we don't really want the males, do we? Because they're a bit of a nuisance, these chicks that are male. So what do? We have a woman, here we go, we're now a woman or a man working in a factory because they need the job. They're being traumatized by their work, and they become dispassionate because they couldn't do it else. So the chickens, they've actually done it. So the chicken comes a little baby newborn chick that mum's just given birth to. Through her egg, she's on them, they take them away through mass production, and they become a different color. The male is a different color, a little slightly different yellow. And so what she's doing is males, females. The male goes into a food mixer and is killed on day 1. And that is so we can have our omelets. I had no idea. I stopped eating eggs on the moment. I stopped drinking milk the moment. Now, you didn't know that, and I didn't know it for 18 years, even though I was so passionate about this. Or that is how much we have been lied to. Yeah. Now, this is all corporate greed. It is ignorance about not wanting to change. We can have all our things. I make fricassees and, quiches and all sorts of things. You just change the ingredients.
Well,
and it's healthier for us.
I was going to say that, Claire, because again, it's just something to do with my body. But I wouldn't say I was entirely vegan, but basically I couldn't have dairy, and I started now couldn't have gluten because I intuitively felt like there's something there messing around with things or whatever. I don't know what it was, but something just wasn't agreeing with my body. And I can tell you now, when I went to Bali and and I'm not going to speak disrespectfully of Bali, but I saw some home truths with my own eyes of animals and the
Yes.
way they're being treated. And I'm not saying that that is something to be unkind to Bali. It's just that's because it wasn't hidden, you know, it was there for all to
Yes,
see.
that's right.
And as what you've rightly said, you know, a lot of it's hidden, so we know this country's
That's
fine,
right.
but we're not seeing it all. So I really saw it. And
Yes.
so for me, I made that choice for 6 months, and I can tell you now, my skin, my hair, my body, my mind
Yes.
was
Yes.
a whole different level. And
Isn't that interesting? Yeah.
yeah, and again, and I would love you to address this. There's this like misconception, I believe, as well, of you'd be skinny and frail and this and malnutrition. Have you seen some of these
Yeah.
athletes that have,
Yeah, I know.
it's like,
Yes.
also, have you seen a horse that eats grass? It's a stallion.
That's right. Or a gorilla, or a rhinoceros. They don't eat animals. But
Yeah. And I know,
you
like,
know, it's
we're again, you know, but
yeah,
really, like, we're ha-haing, but think about these
yeah,
things, everybody, you know?
yeah. But you've just said it. The clarity you've got in your mind isn't just that. You know, your espoused values that all of us, you know, we don't want to be seen as horrible. We don't want to see our parents as dad who's a farmer. Oh my God, my dad looked after us. He was a great guy. We don't want to think he's cruel.
No.
And actually, dad is probably just trying to feed his family. He's just been brought up in that thing. And then you do get farmers that go, one day an animal looks at them and go, oh my God, I can't do this. And we have a lot of those transitions. But there is that whole thing of when we change what we eat and we have far more phytonutrients, i.e. from plants, everything is within, you know, the nutrition we can have a variety of whole foods. I'm not talking about the junk food things. You can get unhealthy vegans, certainly, because they just eat junk food. Exactly, you know, but we all like, you know, our burgers at times and whatever. But the thing is, it actually affects the microbiome in the stomach, which is actually responsible for about 80 or 90% of serotonin, which is one of our happy hormones. So we are lighter. And I actually think the demonization of veganism and the deliberate attempt that, oh no, Bill Gates is going to make us eat whatever. It's going to make us eat bugs, but bugs are animals too. And the heinous treatment they do to get them. But it's any attempt to get people to not change. I think it's not about diets. It's not about animal cruelty.
No.
It's because once people truly wake up to the fact that we are being duped in a socioeconomic system that keeps us trapped, that keeps us competing. What if we woke up and realized that we can have absolute abundance and joy and all the wonderful experience of life, but nobody has to suffer, and we don't have to compete. We can collaborate, but still have wonderful things. Gosh, we don't want to do that because people couldn't do bad things. They couldn't rip people off. They couldn't do corrupt things. They couldn't put pollutants into the earth. I think the real thing is when people wake up to, there is a way to have what we've got. It's probably different than what we're doing now, and it works. And so the more resistance I see is that's when we're on the money almost. And we think, there's something definitely happening there. But thank you for letting me share that. And because I was horrified at how much we've been lied to. When you start looking at this stuff, when you look at what is being sprayed on our earth, on the insecticides,
even
and
rice,
the pesticides,
even
rice, the actual destruction, the mass production to make money, and it's all about, we want to feed the planet.
Well,
you know,
I just thought it was ironic, sorry to interrupt you, Claire, but it's ironic whether you were aware of it or not when you said on the money, and I just thought it's really interesting that you just naturally said that. But anyway.
Well, on the money, that's right. But I think that's it. But it's, you know, when we actually, I remember when I knew about insecticides and pesticides, but I literally cried when I did a certificate at Cornell University in plant-based nutrition, just for fun, just because I also, you know, wanted to know about these things, and it's eye-opening and so the rewards are so great. But I literally cried when I read this module. What a literally a crime against humanity that it's in our soils, it's in our air, it's in people are trying to look after their families and have healthy families. And we are being attacked at all levels. And the great thing is for the industrialist is, you know, you negotiate, there's corruption between that and government, that we don't even see the labeling on the thing, it's normal. You know, the insecticides and pesticides are carcinogenic. They cause cancer. It's not just a possibility. And look at the massive increase we've had in the 6 major lifestyle illnesses in the past 70 years. Massive. You know, the size of people, the diabetes, the respiratory conditions, the cancer.
Yeah, the skin
Everyone's looking for all
problem.
these reasons.
Yeah.
The skin problems, the asthma in children. You know,
Yeah.
if dairy is mucus producing. You take them off dairy. You took me off dairy 2 weeks after 20 years of eczema. My eczema
Wow.
goes.
Wow.
You know, and little
And it's
things, and you
hidden
think
in so much as
it's
well.
hidden.
And
And
this
it's
is what I noticed when I had to start cutting
yeah,
out dairy. It wouldn't even put the full ingredients. It would say like protein, but it wouldn't say what the
yeah,
protein was made of. So
that's
even in
right.
that, it's like yeah,
Yeah. Well, there's the protein myth, because the first thing someone says, do you know, you could even get your car mechanic, when somebody becomes vegan, or they becomes vegan, they become pro-vegan, they are pre-vegan, and they go, oh no, I'm going to expand this even further, and then even learn about X, Y, Z, is the first question you're going to get asked is, well, where do you get your protein? Now, I can't believe that everybody's gone to nutrition protein school and they're bioscience, biochemists, and they know about this. It's just what people say, because your car mechanic, I don't think he knows about amino acids, but maybe he does it in his spare time. I don't know. And so, so do you know, we're told we need protein. Where do you get your protein? Do you know how much protein we actually need? This is mind blowing. You know, people think of a 4 ounce this, or have some eggs, or have some whatever. The average person needs 0.8 grams of protein per 1 kilogram of lean body fat, 2 pounds of lean body weight, fat weight, not fat. 0.8 grams is 25 grams make up 1 ounce. We need 0.8 grams for every 2 pounds of healthy body weight, not overweight. It's absolutely minuscule. And actually, you know, it is a mathematical impossibility for anybody on any diet, white bread rolls if you like, to have a protein deficiency, except in starvation.
Yeah.
So we have been lied to. You need a 16-ounce steak? No, you don't. That's so the agriculture industry are getting, and it's not the farmer getting rich often, it's the industrialist, you know, the average farmer. So we've been lied to so much. There's even protein in oranges, anything that has a nitrogen base. Of course it is. It's what a load of nonsense. The cow eats the grass, the gorilla eats the trees, you know, it's made into that. And so that was one of the biggest myths. And so if that's what you find out, what else don't we know? And I'm on a whole food, plant-based, plant source diet, not plant-based, because plant-based could mean you got a few vegetables in your burger. And yeah, I do eat those things occasionally, but I make all the normal, and my diet is, you know, today I'm going to have a lasagna, okay?
Well,
I'm going to make a homemade
I was just about to
one
say
with,
that, Claire.
yes,
Like this is, I had to start being creative because I had this
yeah,
again, which was programmed into me of I can't have all these things now. No, I actually can have it all, and do you know what?
yeah,
For me, it tastes even more delicious, and I don't then feel like so full or so this or so
yeah,
that, and I just naturally know when to eat, like how much to eat, when you
yeah,
know
you
when I,
feel, yeah,
and it's
you don't
fresh,
have
it's
the cravings,
delicious.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. Well, today I will make a cheese sauce out of, I used to do it with sweet potatoes, but I now do it with pumpkins.
Oh
Because
wow.
it's one I've grown myself, believe it or not.
Mm.
So you let the pumpkin, you make it, you put it in the food mixer. So it's, you boil it or you whatever, you put it in the food mixer. You add, I usually add a veggie stock cube to it. One or two, it depends how big the pumpkin is. I would use coarse grain mustard. I would use cider vinegar because it makes it sharp, and a thing called yeast flakes, which are a cheesy sort of taste without all the heaviness, without all those casomorphines. That whizzes up to your cheese sauce, a thick, beautiful cheese
Wow.
sauce. I then actually you must think, gosh, I make all my own things, but often I do. Homemade tomato sauce it's got carrots and celery, the normal Italian tomato sauce, or you have a thing of sauce. I've got lentils and some beans in it with onions and all that lovely stuff. And I would layer this with pasta, and that's a lasagna. I could eat the whole lasagna and I still won't be overfull, because the overfullness is coming from the heavy, you know, satiation that the mother cow is trying to have for her baby. And so, you know, so I eat lasagna and pizzas and make my own little burgers, you know. So I'm on a whole food plant source diet. So a lot of my, you know, I eat plants and beans and shrubs
I
and
feel a
nuts. And
cookbook coming along.
I do. Absolutely. How exciting.
I
The
think you'd be
Vystopia
great.
cookbook. Yes, and with me with a glass of champagne in my hand.
Exactly. Yeah. That's the thing,
Yes.
let's really change these misconceptions and these,
Yeah.
eating
Yeah.
a lettuce leaf.
Ah, really, I look at it and I go, gosh, you know, and then there's a lot of people that still like the taste of meat. They go, well, I didn't give up eating animals because I didn't like the taste of it.
No.
It's actually, and when you align your values with your actions, the benefits of this are much greater. Firstly, you bring a lot more wonderful things back into your life, because how boring the average omnivore diet is. People just have to add all these sauces and they add all this stuff, and the poor body is desperate for nutrients.
Yeah.
You know, when I look at a strawberry, for instance, there are 1,000 different nutrients in a strawberry.
Wow.
And people go, oh, there's a bit of vitamin C in there. I actually have such a passion whenever I'm eating something. I had chard yesterday, I think they call it, or something, and I put it in. When you look at it, your body is literally, you know, it's a little biochemical machine, a miracle thing. You know, we create other human beings. We, you know, sleep, we digest food, we turn that into energy to go and do something. It's such a fascination, the human body. And so I'm actually fascinated by what this, and we can live healthy and happy and abundant lives and no, without harming others. Why wouldn't we do that?
Yeah. Thank you so much, Claire. It's been an absolute pleasure and an eye-opener today. And I know even if people are just listening to get more awareness, that seeds will be planted today. And I appreciate your time. And yeah, thank you. And obviously, if there's anything you would like to share, please feel free now. But
Absolutely. Well, thank you. Well, I just encourage people to ask questions. You know, just be curious. You know, try to put that tendency for us to think we're being told what to do. You know, don't be duped. Go, what else don't I know, in all sorts of areas of life? So,
exactly.
fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great.
Be curious. Well, I was going to say, and obviously if something comes to your mind, feel free, because I always say at the end, if there's something you feel someone listening right now would really benefit from hearing, it doesn't have to be linked to what we just said. It could be anything that comes to your mind. What would you tell them?
Be the change you want to see in the world.
Oof.
You know, become an example of how you would like it to be, and then you fan the flame, the embers in people's lives to go, yes, what is my skills, creativity? What is my zest? That actually, what is my secret sauce? You know, and whatever your circumstance, it's never too late to change that.
Thank you so much, Claire. Absolute diamond, and I've loved this conversation with you, and it's definitely a lot of food for thought, I believe. So,
Indeed.
yeah,
Thank you,
thank
indeed.
you.